A man and a woman stand outside a garden they can never re-enter. Behind them, the entrance is blocked. These are not comforting companions. They are the terrifying architects of God's will. The question is not what they look like. They are creatures of pure, radiating fire, orbiting the throne like living stars. So brilliant they have to shield their own eyes from the source of all light. When Isaiah sees them, his reaction is immediate. Total despair. Woe is me, for I am lost. He knows the rule of the ancient cosmos. You cannot bring human impurity into the presence of the Absolute. Burning holiness of Yahweh without being incinerated. He is a man of unclean lips. He is breathing the smoke of his own execution. Then, one of the seraphim breaks formation. It flies toward him. It holds a pair of heavy iron tongs. Pinched between the tongs is a glowing, superheated coal taken directly from the altar of God. You can feel the searing heat radiating against his face. You can hear the hiss and smell the incense, mixed with burning flesh, as the coal touches his mouth. The seraph speaks. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. That burning touch changes everything. The seraphim are not just celestial choir members. They are the living instruments of purification. They carry the fire that destroys impurity so the human can survive the presence of God. But there is another category of beings who cross the boundary into human history. Beings who do. It is what they are built to do. To feel the weight of these encounters, you have to strip away centuries of European art, not carry coal from the altar to heal. They carry the full, unfiltered wrath of the divine. We often read the judgments in the Bible as abstract acts of God. A plague falls. An empire collapses. An army dies in the dark. We treat these events as impersonal forces of nature, like a storm rolling over the horizon. But if you look closely at the text, the mechanism of divine judgment is almost always an entity, the executioner. In the book of Exodus, at the climax of the Egyptian plagues, the command is given to slaughter a lamb and paint the rough wooden doorposts with hyssop branches soaked in blood. We usually read this as a theological shadow, a profound metaphor for salvation, but the blood on the wood is not a symbol. It is a barricade. Yahweh states that when he sees the blood, he will not allow the Mashchit, the destroyer, to enter the houses and strike them down. There is a specific, lethal entity moving through the midnight streets of Egypt. You can hear the wailing rising from the mud brick houses. You can feel the heavy, suffocating dread in the night air. The destroyer does not negotiate. It simply follows orders. Centuries later, the same lethal efficiency returns. The Assyrian Empire has surrounded Jerusalem. You have to step back into the ancient dust of the Middle East, where the boundary between heaven and earth was razor thin. King Hezekiah is trapped behind the limestone walls. The taunts of the enemy commanders echo across the valley in fluent Hebrew. The Assyrian army is the meat grinder of the ancient world. They skin their captives alive. They leave pyramids of skulls outside conquered gates, and Jerusalem is entirely surrounded by their deadliest veterans. Then, the sun goes down. The text in 2 Kings 19 says simply, "And that night the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185. 0 inches, the camp of the Assyrians. No battle cry. No clash of bronze shields. Just a silent, devastating sweep of lethal force." When morning breaks, the desert sun rises over a silent valley of 185. 000. Corpse. The Assyrian king packs up his tent and flees in terror. A few generations prior, King David stands on a threshing floor and looks up to see the angel of the Lord suspended between earth and heaven. The being holds a drawn sword, stretched out over Jerusalem, bringing a plague that drops 70. 000 men in 3 days. The destruction is surgical. The obedience is absolute. These beings are not driven by malice. They are driven by jurisdiction. They are the immune system of the divine order, eradicating whatever threatens the holiness of God's space, or the survival of his covenant people. They do not have personal vendettas. They carry out the decree of the throne room, where an encounter with the divine was not a warm, emotional embrace, but a violent collision, because when these beings step into the physical text of Scripture with flawless, terrifying precision, for thousands of years of biblical history, these entities remain completely anonymous. They are defined solely by their functional titles: the messenger, the destroyer, the burning one. They have no individual identities that humans are permitted to know. But as the biblical timeline marches toward the New Testament, the shadows begin to recede. And for the first time, two of these beings step forward and speak their names. For the vast majority of the Hebrew Bible, the heavenly host operates in complete anonymity. You ask their name, and they refuse to answer. They belong to a collective, sovereign force. But Daniel stands on the muddy, reedy banks of the Tigris River. He is an old man. He has been fasting for 3 full weeks. The political empires of the world are grinding against each other, and he is desperate for understanding. Suddenly, he looks up. A man stands, hovering above the rushing water. He is clothed in raw linen. His waist is belted with massive, pure gold. His face flashes like lightning. His eyes burn like torches of fire, and the sound of his words hits the air like the roaring of a violent, panicked crowd. Daniel does not greet him. He collapses face first into the river mud. The being touches him. He pulls the trembling prophet to his hands and knees. The first words out of their mouths are almost always a command. Do not be afraid. They say it for a reason. And then, he reveals something unprecedented in the biblical text. He pulls back the curtain on a cosmic, geopolitical war happening in the unseen realm. He explains that he was delayed in combat by a demonic principality holding influence over the entire empire of Persia. And he gives a name: Michael. He calls him one of the chief princes. The Hebrew is Mikhail. It literally translates as a rhetorical question: who is like God? And in a previous vision, Daniel meets the other named entity, Gabriel. God is my strength, or the mighty man of God. These names are not personal identifiers. They are titles of supreme authority. Michael is the archangel, the sovereign protector assigned to the nation of Israel, leading the heavenly cavalry into absolute war. Gabriel is the herald of the king's most staggering, reality-altering decrees. 5 centuries later, that same herald steps out of the unseen realm and into a cramped, dusty stone house in the Galilean village of Nazareth. A teenage girl looks up. Gabriel stands before her, the being who terrified Daniel, the entity who understands the rise and fall of global empires and fights in dimensions we cannot perceive. Stands in the shadows of a peasant's home. He delivers the climax of human history. The divine is going to take on flesh. The womb of a virgin will become the new Holy of Holies. When humans encounter the heavenly host in the Bible, they do not smile. They do not reach out to touch them. When Gabriel and Michael step onto the page, the stakes are always absolute. They do not visit to offer soft spiritual encouragement. They arrive when the timeline of the cosmos is about to violently shift, which makes our modern treatment of them completely bizarre. Because when you put the ancient, terrifying reality of the heavenly host next to our modern, comfortable assumptions, you have to face a deeply uncomfortable truth about what we have done to the divine. A porcelain figurine sits on a glass shelf in a modern gift shop. It has soft, pastel-painted wings. It has chubby, dimpled cheeks. It holds a tiny golden harp, and its eyes are closed in a serene, harmless smile. You have probably bought one, or at least walked past one. You have seen them stitched into baby blankets, printed on greeting cards, and painted on the walls of hospital corridors. We do this because we are deeply uncomfortable with the ancient reality. We have taken the entities that made hardened military generals fall face down in the mud, and we have turned them into nursery decorations. We have declawed the armies of Yahweh. This is not reverence. It is domestication. If you are in a season where you find yourself wishing for an angelic encounter, praying for a glowing being to manifest, They fall flat on their faces in the dirt. They tremble. They prepare to die. The overwhelming human reaction to an angel is absolute, unadulterated terror. At the foot of your bed and offer you gentle reassurance, you have to realize what you are actually asking for. You are asking for the fabric of physics to violently tear open in your bedroom. You are asking to breathe the suffocating, ozone-heavy smoke of the cosmic throne room. You are asking to stand entirely exposed before a creature composed of interlocking wheels and unblinking eyes, radiating a terrifying, unapproachable heat. The biblical authors understood something our modern culture has entirely forgotten. The unseen realm is not safe. The beings that inhabit it do not exist to validate your emotions or offer you a warm spiritual embrace. They are the immune system of a holy God. They are the enforcers of a kingdom that operates on a level of purity that would incinerate a human being if they stepped into it unprotected. When we domesticate them, we are not just making bad art. We are shrinking the majesty of God Himself. If His messengers are reduced to harmless, floating infants, then the king they serve must not be very formidable. But if His messengers are creatures of fire and lightning who can wipe out 185,000 veteran soldiers in a single night without a battle cry, then the king on the throne commands an absolute, staggering authority. And yet, the most shocking truth of the biblical narrative is not that these beings are lethal. There is a strict, breathtaking hierarchy that governs the armies of God. There are messengers who look indistinguishable from traveling nomads. It is who they are commanded to serve. The writer of Hebrews asks a rhetorical question that shifts the entire cosmic order. Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation? The warriors with drawn swords, the burning ones with the searing coals, the massive, many-eyed guardians of the divine threshold, all of them operating in total obedience, coordinating a massive, unseen campaign to secure a pathway for humanity to return to the presence of God. But their work in human history is not finished, because the text insists that this entire hierarchy is preparing for one final, devastating deployment. John stands on the jagged black rock of Patmos. The salt wind of the Aegean whips against his face. The sky tears open. He is pulled out of the physical world. He is dragged into the final reality. The book of Revelation is the ultimate deployment of the unseen hierarchy. Every category we have seen across thousands of years of biblical history suddenly converges in one staggering, apocalyptic campaign. The full military weight of the heavenly host is unleashed. 4 angels stand at the 4 corners of the earth. They hold back the raw, destructive winds of reality. 7 angels step forward out of the thick smoke of the temple. They carry 7 trumpets. There are warriors who stand over cities with drawn swords. There are burning ones who scream the holiness of God so loudly. Another angel takes a heavy golden censer. He fills it with the searing fire of the altar. He hurls it violently down to the earth. You can hear the deafening crack of thunder. You can feel the ground violently heave and shake beneath your feet. The command is given. The trumpets sound. A mountain of fire is thrown into the ocean. A star burns like a torch and crashes into the rivers. The sun is violently struck. The moon turns dark. An entity flies directly overhead in the high atmosphere, screaming a warning of terror to everyone left on the dirt. Then, the archangel enters the theater of war. Michael and his forces engage the dragon. A cosmic, multi-dimensional war rips through the heavenly places. The ancient serpent is overwhelmed. He is hurled violently down. The boundary between realms completely collapses. One angel steps down out of the clouds. He stands with 1 foot on the churning, chaotic sea and 1 foot on the solid earth. He raises his right hand to swear by the Creator. That time will be no more. Finally, 7 angels emerge, carrying 7 heavy, golden bowls. They do not pour out water. They pour out the undiluted wrath of the absolute King. The oceans turn to thick, coagulated blood. The heat of the sun scorches human flesh. The great city fractures into 3 pieces. This is the terrifying climax of their jurisdiction. They are not passive observers of the end of days, that the heavy stone doorposts of the temple shake. There are creatures composed entirely of interlocking wheels and unblinking eyes, carrying the very throne of the cosmos. They are the active executioners of the final decree. From the cherubim guarding the Gate of Eden to the armies descending on the final battlefield, they have operated flawlessly. They have maintained the boundaries. They have delivered the messages. They have brought the fire. But when the smoke finally clears, the earth stops shaking. A new city descends from the newly formed sky. And the most shocking thing about the heavenly host in this final chapter is not what they are doing. It is what they are no longer doing. A flaming sword spun at the Gate of Eden, and humanity learned the cost of exile. A messenger walked into the blistering desert, and a weeping mother learned she was seen. A commander stood, with a drawn blade outside Jericho, and a general learned who truly owns the war. A chariot of intersecting wheels and eyes rushed out of a storm, and a priest learned the unapproachable weight of the throne. A burning one flew down with a searing coal, and an unclean man learned the violent grace of purification. A destroyer swept through the midnight streets of Egypt, and an empire learned the absolute power of the blood, not by a wooden gate, not by a stone wall, by a creature of fire and motion, holding a blade that turns in every direction. Each category has a specific function. Each has a specific domain. But the place to begin is not with the terrifying. On the door, an archangel broke the silence in a dusty room in Nazareth, and the cosmos learned that the king was finally taking on flesh. One army, one king. But here is the part I keep coming back to: not the terrifying wheels of the cherubim, or the crushing weight of the apocalyptic judgment. It is that cold morning in Dothan, a terrified servant stepping out of his house, looking at an impossible human army, entirely unaware that the mountain behind him is already burning with a cavalry of light. He thought he was surrounded, but his enemies were surrounded by the host of heaven. If you are in a season where the threats against you feel entirely physical, where the walls are closing in, and the math of your survival simply does not add up, you have to remember the unseen reality. Your isolation is not the truth of your situation. It is only the limit of your vision. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels completely outnumbered in their current season. Many-eyed creatures of the throne room. The place to begin is out in the blistering heat of the wilderness. Pray for us as we keep digging into these ancient texts. And may the God who commands the burning ones and the sword bearers open your eyes to see the fire on the mountain and give you the absolute peace of knowing you have never once stood on the battlefield alone, with a pregnant slave woman weeping in the sand, and a being that simply walked out of the dust. When we read the English word angel, our minds immediately supply the wings and the glowing aura. But the biblical authors did not have that cultural baggage. In the earliest encounters recorded in the ancient texts, the beings that step into human history do not float down from the sky in blazing glory. They walk in off the dirt roads. They sit under the shade of massive trees. They ask for a drink of water. Their voices dry from the desert wind. To understand the foundational layer of the heavenly hierarchy, you have to look at the Hebrew language itself. The term appears for the first time in Genesis chapter 16. Verse 7. A pregnant Egyptian servant named Hagar has fled into the barren wilderness, collapsing beside a spring of water in the blistering heat. The text says, "The angel of the Lord found her." The word translated as angel in your English Bible is the Hebrew malach. It appears 213 times in the Old Testament. The heat radiates against their backs in the cool evening air. The sound is like a roaring furnace, cutting through the silence of a broken world, and its primary meaning has absolutely nothing to do with glowing anatomy or supernatural species. The noun simply translates to messenger. It is a functional job description, not a biological classification. A malach is an emissary sent by a sovereign ruler. carrying a specific decree that must be delivered exactly as it was spoken. In fact, the biblical authors use this exact same Hebrew word to describe ordinary, human couriers running with sealed scrolls between rival kings. But when Amalek is dispatched from the heavenly realm, a fascinating pattern emerges across the ancient narratives. They almost never arrive as bizarre, terrifying entities. They arrive looking entirely, remarkably human. When three of them approach the camp of Abraham under the towering oaks of Mamre in Genesis 18, Abraham does not fall to his knees in apocalyptic terror. He treats them like weary travelers walking the trade routes. He washes the heavy sand from their calloused feet using water from a clay basin. He prepares roasted calf and warm curds. And the text specifically notes that these spiritual beings sit down and consume the physical food. There are no feathers. There is no blinding light. There is only the coarse grit of the ancient Near East and the profound weight of the message they carry. This deliberate ambiguity is a brilliant feature of the ancient Hebrew narrative. For the first few minutes of the encounter, and for the first time in human history, humanity looks upon a being from the unseen realm. You have probably seen the paintings. We all have. The biblical character is completely unaware that the boundary between dimensions has been breached. The ordinary serves as camouflage for the holy. The Malak is not an ethereal spirit, floating comfortably above physical reality. It is the authority of the divine, stepping directly into the mud, and the sweat and the ordinary dust of human existence. They are designed to blend in, to observe, and to deliver the words of the king, without breaking the psychological limits of the human mind. But this quiet, human-like appearance is only one operational level of the unseen army. Because, while Amalek can carry a blessing to a weeping mother in the wilderness, they are also capable of carrying a blade. And when the wandering years end and the bloody conquest of a new land begins, the heavenly host stops asking for warm meals and starts drawing weapons. Joshua stands in the dirt outside Jericho. The air is thick. The stone walls are impossibly high. The burden of leadership is crushing his shoulders. He is mapping the terrain. He is calculating the siege. Then he looks up. A man stands opposite him. The text gives no warning of his arrival. He is just suddenly there. But this is no traveler asking for water. He holds a drawn sword in his hand. You can hear the scrape of iron. You can see the sunlight flashing off the lethal edge of the blade. The Renaissance gave us chubby infants with tiny wings floating on white clouds. Greeting cards gave us gentle guardians standing quietly by hospital beds. Joshua places a hand on his weapon. He asks the only logical question a general can ask. Are you for us or for our adversaries? The answer changes the entire theology of spiritual warfare in a single breath. The being does not align with Israel. He does not align with Canaan. He says a single Hebrew word, lo. No. But I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come. Joshua drops his weapon. He falls face down in the dust. The being commands him to remove his sandals. The dirt beneath his feet has suddenly become radioactive with the holiness of God. The heavenly host is not a celestial backup unit. It is a sovereign military force. This being did not come to assist Joshua's army. He came to take command of the theater of war. The battle belongs to the unseen realm. We see this same terrifying reality centuries later. Elisha sleeps in the walled city of Dothan. The morning air is cold. The sun is barely cresting the hills. His servant steps outside and freezes. The Syrian army has surrounded the city in the night. Heavy chariots, snorting horses, the terrifying clank of thousands of bronze weapons waiting for the slaughter. The servant panics. He runs back inside. Alas, my master, what shall we do? Elisha does not flinch. Pop culture gave us glowing humans in white robes, playing harps and dispensing soft advice. We have domesticated the divine. He speaks a profound truth of the biblical cosmos. Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Elisha prays. The servant's eyes are opened. He looks back at the hillside. The Syrian army is still there, but they are entirely eclipsed. The mountain is burning. Horses of fire, chariots of fire, surrounding Elisha, a massive, devastating cavalry of light and heat, vibrating with lethal intent, waiting for a single word to annihilate the threat. You can smell the ozone. You can feel the heat radiating from the mountain. These are the warriors. The enforcers? When the boundary between heaven and earth thins, the spiritual realm bleeds into the physical with terrifying military precision. But even these warriors, the sword bearers and the charioteers, are just the vanguard. They operate in the physical world, maintaining the shape of men to interact with human history. But what happens when a human mind is dragged past the battlefield? What happens when a prophet is pulled into the heavenly throne room itself? The human shape disappears entirely, and something unimaginable takes its place. If you want to understand how alien the divine realm truly is, you have to read the accounts of the prophets, who were dragged directly into the throne room. In the first chapter of Ezekiel, a priest sitting in Babylonian exile watches the sky tear open. We have taken the entities of the heavenly host and turned them into mascots. Most people assume angels in the Bible are just humans with wings. A windstorm of lightning and fire rolls toward him over the river. What steps out of the center of the storm has haunted biblical scholars and baffled artists for millennia. He describes a geometric nightmare of intersecting wheels, gleaming like polished beryl, their massive rims completely covered in unblinking eyes. They have 4 faces: a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. The sound of their wings is deafening. It vibrates against the prophet's ribs like the roar of a massive, rushing waterfall. Ezekiel later identifies these specific entities in chapter 10. The word he writes in the scroll is the Hebrew keruv. In the plural form, keruvim. You know them in English as the cherubim. The word appears 91 times in the Hebrew Bible, and its etymology shatters everything you thought you knew about angelic beings. While linguists debate the exact origin, its roots trace deeply into ancient Akkadian and Assyrian vocabulary. Words like karabu, which means to bless or to praise, and the kurabu, the colossal, terrifying winged beasts carved out of solid stone to guard the thresholds of ancient Near Eastern palaces. In the biblical text, they serve an identical cosmic function. They are the ultimate security system of the divine presence. If something about peeling back the layers of these ancient texts is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for, sent to bring peace, comfort, and good tidings. And they do sometimes bring messages. But if you look closer at the ancient Hebrew words, drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the prophet watches these creatures move with the lightning, and the pieces of the Old Testament suddenly lock together. You finally realize why God stationed them at the east gate of Eden with a flaming sword to block humanity from the tree of life. You realize why God commanded Moses to hammer their likeness out of pure, heavy gold to sit on top of the Ark of the Covenant, in the pitch-black isolation of the Holy of Holies. The Ark was not just a storage box for stone tablets. It was the footstool of Yahweh on earth. That ancient context changes everything about how we view them. The cherubim are not chubby infants strumming harps on greeting cards. They are the unapproachable guardians of God's holy space. They are the living, biological throne chariot of the Creator. But even the cherubim, with their wheels of eyes and their faces of predators, are not the beings standing closest to the eternal fire. The year King Uzziah dies, the prophet Isaiah walks into the temple. The nation is fracturing. The political stability is collapsing. He looks up. The roof of the physical temple dissolves. He is suddenly standing in the cosmic throne room, at the bizarre anatomical descriptions, at the physical destruction they leave in their wake. You start to see something the cultural version completely misses. The hem of a massive robe fills the entire expanse. The heavy stone doorposts are violently shaking. The air is choking with thick, blinding smoke. And above the throne, beings are flying. They have 6 wings. With 2, they cover their faces in reverence. With 2, they cover their feet in humility. With 2, they fly in service. They are calling to one another. not singing a quiet, melodic hymn, screaming in an antiphonal roar that shakes the architecture of reality. Holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The sound vibrates through the solid stone floor. It shatters the silence of the earth. The word Isaiah uses to describe these creatures is the Hebrew seraph. In the plural, seraphim, it is a word that carries immense, terrifying heat. The root is the verb seraph. It literally translates to burn or to consume with fire. These are the burning ones. The word appears just 7 times in the Hebrew Bible, and its associations are shocking. In the book of Numbers, when venomous snakes bite the Israelites in the desert, the text calls them Nehashim Seraphim, the fiery serpents. The bite is a burning poison. The entities in Isaiah's vision share this exact linguistic DNA.